Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I get a lot of weird symptoms from my ME/CFS, as actually most people with ME/CFS have widely different symptoms. Now we all have fatigue, pain, the basics, but then after those ones, they get so different. The first weird symptom of ME/CFS I want to talk about is hypoglycemia. Now, I'm not entirely sure whether I have hypoglycemia or not. And also I don't know whether it is an ME/CFS symptom, but I just kind of assume that everything wrong with me comes from the ME/CFS. Now, I don't know whether I have this condition, but I strongly identify with these symptoms. And I frequently have these hypoglycemic episodes where I fit the full description of having hypoglycemia, in that when I don't eat enough, the episode comes on, and when I eat, the episode will slowly go away. The symptoms of hypoglycemia are an irregular heartbeat, which I definitely get during the episodes, fatigue, which is kind of a hard one for me to measure, but I would say the hypoglycemia definitely increases my tiredness. Shakiness is the first sign for me that I need to eat something. I'll start doing something and I'll realise, oh, I can't keep my hands still, and that's like my warning sign, the shakiness. And as the episode gets worse, the shakiness gets more and more intense, so it starts with just very small from my hands, and then my whole body, like eventually my whole body is shaking like uncontrollably. Another symptom is also sweating, which definitely happens during a hypoglycemic episode. I feel both very hot and also cold. Hunger is the main one. I think that's the reason for the episode in the first place, and quite often my blood sugar will react before I actually feel hungry, but hunger's always there with it. And then tingling and numbness. In a hypoglycemic episode, go completely numb. I can't feel anything anymore. I'm really shaky, but I can't feel stuff. I don't feel connected to the outside because of the lack of feeling. And if I'm walking, I feel really untethered to just the ground and the outside world, the world that's outside of my body, because I'm just so numb. And that's like all of those symptoms I completely agree that I get. There's a second section about what happens when hypoglycemia gets worse, and I have some of those as well, which includes confusion and inability to complete regular tasks. Now, sometimes I'm unable to complete regular tasks because of the ME, the tiredness, but not being able to complete task because of the hypoglycemia is a completely different feeling. I feel like I'm gonna faint, so standing up's really hard. I can't feel my hands, so doing tasks is really difficult. I'm exhausted. Just there's so many things and make things so impossible to do when I'm in that state, and there's nothing I can do except eat and wait for it to get better. They also talk about visual disturbances, which I definitely get. My eyes get significantly cloudy and they struggle to focus on anything, which doesn't help with the feeling of being cut off from the outside, because I can't feel much. I feel like I'm very detached from the world, and that is affected by my eyesight. Then they have seizures. I have never had a seizure in my life. This is where we kind of go off course. I've never had a seizure, and they also talk about loss of consciousness, and I said just a minute ago, I feel like I'm going to faint. I feel like I'm going to pass out at any moment, that I'm going to fall down, passed out, but I don't think it's ever happened. I don't think I have ever passed out from it, even though I felt very close to doing it. I don't think I ever have. So that leads me to the question, do I even have hypoglycemia or not? I don't know. I walk around the world acting like I do, because I need to make sure I'm getting enough calories, enough blood sugar, and if I don't, then I get very unwell feeling, and I get all those symptoms we just talked about. But I've never been told by a medical professional that I have hypoglycemia, and I have been told that my blood sugar is completely normal. It was a long time ago, but I have been told that. I think probably it's worth me talking to a doctor and investigating the issue, but it's hard to bring up new issues. It's hard to say, well, I've had this symptom for 3 years and I'm just kind of dealing with it. And yeah, I can deal with it because I can eat enough, but I don't know what the root cause is. Oh, I've just talked myself into calling the doctor. No, I don't want to. Just talked myself into it, so what am I going to do now? Just ignore my own advice? Another symptom I have a lot is what I describe as feeling drunk. When I get incredibly tired, when I'm incredibly overworked, incredibly exhausted, I feel drunk. Kind of similar in how I'm going to describe it as hypoglycemia, but actually it feels completely different. It does come with the feeling of being detached from the, physical world, but that's because you have the feeling of being intoxicated. But the good thing about being intoxicated, and the reason people enjoy it, is that you find everything funny. You find everything funny, you find everything fun, you're having a great time when you're intoxicated. I have a very similar experience when I'm incredibly overtired to being intoxicated, except it's not fun. The part of my brain that would say this is a great time if I was drunk is not on. So I have all the same feelings. I feel dizzy. I feel exhausted. I struggle to speak. I slur my words. I struggle to focus on looking at things, and I struggle to understand what's going on. All of that is very consistent with how I personally feel when I am drunk, but not fun. It's not fun. And that is a weird symptom to me, I think, because most people never experience those feelings without their brain going, yay, this is fun. And actually, when your brain's not doing that, when your brain's tired and in pain, all those symptoms are scary. They're all scary, and they're not nice, and it's one of the most immediate things that happen to me when I overdo it. So obviously in ME/CFS you have PEM, post-exertional malaise. Once you've overdone stuff, some short time will pass where you'll be like, oh, that was fine, and then you'll get the payback, then you'll get the crash, then you'll get the flare-up. And there's some time between you finishing and that starting. Whereas for me, the drunk feeling is different. The drunk feeling is when I have so dramatically overexerted myself, symptoms show up immediately. Like, you can't do this anymore, stop, you feel like you're dying, here's a drunk feeling. It's weird. Would not recommend. Another strange symptom I get from ME/CFS is nausea. Or nausea, depending on how you're supposed to say that word. A lot of people get nauseous from their chronic illnesses, but most of them have reason for that, being that there's something wrong with their digestive system, etc. Not me. My digestive system works perfectly well. I'm not even intolerant to any foods. I just sometimes feel sick at the thought of food, and it's been going on since I was 16 or 17, and it's not consistent either. It's not like this food always makes me feel sick. There's no consistency of what foods make me feel sick, and there's no consistency of time. So I had maybe a 6-month section when I was around 17 years old, 16, 17, where so many foods just made me feel sick. It was kind of more like the concept of food made me feel unwell. And it's not that I didn't want to eat, I just couldn't bear it. And actually at that time I lost quite a lot of weight just because I wasn't eating enough, and it was quite scary. And luckily that hasn't happened since, and I got my appetite back, and I've been able to eat pretty consistently since then. So for the last 5 years I've been a lot better. But every now and again I will get hit with the nauseous feelings around food, and I will have to will myself to eat dinner or lunch or whatever it is, and I will really have to make myself do it for my health, because I don't feel sick once it's in there, right? I don't get food into me and then feel sick. I just feel sick at the idea of putting it in my mouth. So once it's in there, I know it's fine, but I just sometimes need to make myself eat it, you know, to get enough calories in. And unfortunately it is happening a bit at the moment, which is really not ideal, but I'm really trying to keep up my calorie intake to make sure that I'm not losing weight. It's not too bad at the moment, and yes, I mostly am eating 3 meals a day and snacks. I don't experience it really badly like I did when I was 17. I just get very minor bad patches. Nausea is one of those things that is kind of off and on for me, and it will be a couple of weeks where I feel sick and eating's hard, but then it will go away for 6 months. It's not one of my consistent symptoms, it's one that comes and goes just at random. And my last weird symptom of ME is just my sensitive skin. And I don't mean like sensitive like it reacts to chemicals, I mean it reacts so much to touch, and I'm really quite inconsistent with my feelings about how I perceive different touch, different like physical like touch stimuli. For example, I've always been a ring person, and up and like probably from the age of like 13 to 16 I wore rings to school every day, and then I got sick and I couldn't stand the feeling of rings on my fingers. I felt like they were constricting, I felt like the blood wasn't getting through to my fingers, I felt like I could just feel them all the time. And it's the same with a lot of stuff actually. If someone like strokes me, I have to rub it out. So if you did like a circle or something like that, a spiral on my hand, on my arm, I can still feel that. I can feel all the places I touched with like the tip of my finger, and I have to rub it out, as I say, in order for it to feel better. Like this doesn't bother me, but drawing lines like that, I mean, they're not visible, obviously, I don't know what I'm showing you, but I can still feel exactly where they were, which is weird, and I don't think that's a real thing, but that's something my brain is doing, being like, there's 2 lines on you right now, there's 2 lines, that I feel it, and I'm now gonna have to go in and fix that, because my skin is so sensitive to all this like stimuli, and it's weird because it's new for me. I mean, it's not new. Probably didn't come with like the first wave of symptoms though. That's one of the things I think with ME that people don't understand is I got ME at 16. I was diagnosed at 16, and new symptoms still pop up. And people think you get ME and now you have ME, and actually things continue to pop up or disappear. Things change, things reappear. There's symptoms I used to have that I haven't had in years. There's symptoms that are new and they've just popped up, and I'm like, I don't know where that came from. And there's symptoms that I used to have, went away, and have now come back. And it's just the nature of this changeable illness. There's just so many different symptoms, and you'll probably get a lot of them, but just at different times. And there's always the fatigue, and there's always the pain and the aches, you know, the standard ones you'll always get, and they'll be consistent. But then there's all these peripheral things which will come and go, and it's weird, so weird. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't seen part 1, I will link it below and in the card. We are nearly at 500 subscribers, and we might actually already be at 500 subscribers when you're watching this. So if you could hit the subscribe button, that would be so great. I'd really appreciate that. I'm just trying to grow my little channel here and spread awareness and just help people feel not alone. Comment down below and let me know if you have any of these symptoms, or if you have any weird stuff that I haven't mentioned. Bye bye! There is a stranger stood looking into my garden. Don't do that. Turn and leave. Made me feel sick.